For those with good taste.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? It's your boys from For Those With Good Taste. I'm Matt. He's Lenny.
I am.
And we'd like to welcome you right back here to Good Taste Studios for another helping of the Tale of the Tape. But before we get into it, we're going to ask that you hit the subscribe button, hit us in the like, maybe throw some comments, Len?
I'm saying if you out there want to throw some hands, why don't you throw them hands at the notification bell and the like button? They were looking at you sideways when you walked into the room.
Yeah, and if it ain't in the comment section, it didn't happen. I think that's fair to say.
Vegas in that way?
No, I think what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Right now, nothing's happening in the comment section. We need it to happen in the comment section.
Okay,
yeah,
so
we need... Everybody needs to know what's happening in the comment section, all right? But
you know what normally goes down in Vegas, though, Matt?
People get shit-faced, dude.
They do. They get fucking hammered, bro. And unlike previous Tales of the Tapes where we dive deep into a particular fight, let's kick this off with some news.
Yeah, we'll start it the way that I think it should be started up, with some hot goss.
Yeah, we start with straight shots and we'll pop wine bottles.
I think you're making a sweet mention to one Paulo Costa. Lived up to his name, Paulo Costa.
What does Barashinha mean?
Oh, that means little drunk person.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, swear to God.
No, it doesn't.
Dude, if in Spanish, if you're borracho, you're drunk, dude. So his name is Borrachinha.
I didn't even know this.
Yes, this is why this is gold, man.
Wow, that's insane. That's a layer I didn't even understand.
It's fantastic. But as we're alluding to, I guess you could say, it's recently popped off that Paulo Costa showed up to his title fight against Israel Adesanya.
Feeling a little drunk.
Feeling a little drunk from some wine, buddy. What is going on?
So the story goes that the night before the fight, he was cramping up really bad and he couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
So in an effort to help himself sleep, he did what any of us would do. He turned to the bottle, Matt.
The bottle's never been anybody's friend for the next day arrangement of what you have to do.
No, I've never heard of like a person enjoying a wine drunk.
No. It's always a bad time.
You know, one of the first red flags here to me, though, and like we would never confuse this guy with an intelligent human being, I suppose.
No.
And like I shouldn't throw stones either for that matter, but the guy just cut a ton of weight. I'm glad
you said it. Because are we not going to blame the fact that this man cuts 20 pounds on the fact that he might have been a little bit dehydrated and cramping?
Yeah, but you're 100% right. And drinking doesn't usually help hydration, I don't think.
I think he might be a drunk.
I just don't. He must have been fucking wrecked, is my point. Dude, if you're that, like...
How many boxes of wine did you have?
If you got, like, all of your liquids taken out of you and you've dropped, like, 20 pounds in a few days, and then all of a sudden you just drink a whole bottle of wine to the face, I think that man was plastered. And in that way, I do kind of give him some, like, defense here where it's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't fight Israel Adesanya in that state. Like the next day, you're in. You know when you get the sweats the next day, and it feels like the drunk kind of kicks back in. It's almost like, I don't know if you ever had this happen where you eat an edible and like you feel like the edible like a day later, Bro, it's like hitting you again.
Like, is it taking over me again?
Yeah,
yes,
like,
of course.
You get flashbacks.
There's nothing worse because you're like, I thought it was over.
Yeah, he had the drunk sweats. Dude.
No, but you know what's worse about this is you realize that this man went into a middleweight title fight against one of the best middleweights in the world on the planet. And you thought you were just going to show up a little tipsy? You know what happens to people who have too much wine, Len?
I thought you were going to go Chris Jericho and say they get put on the list.
No, worse. They end up face down, ass up, with somebody doing inappropriate stuff behind them. And that's exactly what happened in this fight.
Tapped. Yeah, yes. You got double tapped. The sad thing here, in all seriousness, is like you're seeing what happens to a big man's ego when they think that being big is the only thing that like matters.
There's so many red flags because it's like, hey man, you lost, and you lost in a really, really bad fashion. You haven't had a fight since. Let's put your name back on the winning board, and then maybe you can start talking about why you couldn't perform that night.
He has a chance though. He's got a fight coming up with Robert Whittaker. We'll see what happens.
Bad man right there.
Moving on to more serious news though. Sadly, so Khamzat Chimaev. He has recently been booked a couple different times to fight Leon Edwards. Yep. And it keeps falling out because he's had a battle with COVID.
You say battle, man. This has been a war with COVID for him. One of the worst cases I think that's been reported
just
for a while.
Starters, I think this is it's one of those ones where it makes you see how real it is, because a lot of the athletes that I've heard of, so Celtics fan, right? You have Jason Tatum was just talking about how he's had lingering effects from COVID, and how it's like he's felt really like tired.
Yeah.
But
fatigue.
That's like you feel bad, and but he can still perform. Like, this guy is like going through it, and it's scary because he's in great shape.
Yeah.
He's in his mid-20s. He's a professional athlete. And I think I saw pictures of he was like coughing up blood.
Man, he's regularly active too. He's fighting on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the worst scenes, of seeing the photos of him coughing up blood.
I wonder if he, though, maybe initially tried to push through it because he is so tough.
Maybe.
And now that is kind of hitting him on the back end. But neither here nor there. Like, he ends up announcing via Instagram or Twitter that he can't do it, and that he wants to put his family first, and he needs to get healthy, and he's going to retire. And I don't know about you, but I initially, right when I read that, was like, this seems like a really emotional response, and I can't imagine it lasts.
My first thought was, okay, we know he doesn't run his social media, right? Because this is so off the cuff. Like, you're
but I feel like that's got to be him just hopping in there. No?
Just jumping in there and being like, hey, I got to put this out to the world, and I just need to express how I feel right now. This is how important this is to me. But it doesn't really last long.
It's nuts, because then from there, like, the announcement of the retirement happens, and again, you just don't. I didn't really think it would last, but not 24 hours later, maybe not 12 hours later, of like the Chechnyan leader. Like, I don't understand how other parts of the world really work. So it's just like, it's nuts, because is this the equivalent of like Biden calling up? I guess it would be like, so it's like Trump with Kobe Covington. He like calls him up, and he's like, Kobe, like, American hero, buddy.
Listen, buddy, the country needs you right now. Yeah, we're in a tough time. Yeah. You need to put this country on your back, and we need you to go out there.
We know you can make it through it. So he's like, the Chechnyan leader calls up Khamzat, and he's like, Kazi, buddy, I know you're hurting a little right now. Your lungs are falling out of you, literally out of your mouth.
I would imagine it's cold in Chechnya too.
No, I think it's kind of a thing like it is here now, where like Lenny, it's cold here.
It sounds like a cold place, man.
But it's cold here. I think it's probably warm there. It's like summer there.
But it sounds cold. I'm just going to say that, man.
I don't actually know if it's warm there either.
It sounds cold.
Hypothesize.
He's like, hey, Kazi, let me talk to you, man. Your lungs feeling a little bit hurt? Trust me, man. We got people dying over here. Okay? We need you to get back in that gym, and we need you to take this man to school. And it's probably one of the more badass things to do, but you probably got to put some time in between announcements. Kind of feel like.
Yeah, I think he should have let it breathe a little bit more, but it's okay to have a change of heart. And I definitely, I didn't want to see him retire. I mean, the guy's at the top of the world right now. It'd be unheard of to, like, is there another example of somebody? I mean, like, Jordan walked away, but he walked away to like play baseball, right? Like, it's like, and not that this guy's not Jordan. I don't mean it like that, but he's like, he was like climbing at a rapid pace. Yeah. He's getting up there in terms of the rankings, and all of a sudden you're just retiring. Like, no, it's just, it's nuts.
Outside of like major injuries, it's definitely nuts. I mean, TJ Grant is someone that comes to mind. Somebody who's really highly ranked, but medically speaking, you're just not able to do it.
That's a really good pull. Yeah. What was the other kid who was on? I think maybe the same season. He's the coach of Alpha Male, David. He was one of the coaches at. Man, I'm not.
Dave Castillo.
No, not even him. No, he is also the one. But he was on a season of The Ultimate Fighter. He fought at like 135. The kid had multiple concussions.
No, but everybody talks in Alpha Male that he was like the best.
He's really good.
That Jim had, and couldn't finish up his career. I know who you're talking about. The name's gonna escape me.
I'll remember it when we get off there. Either way,
it's
but
Danny
like,
Castillo.
You don't want to see anybody walk away at that point. So I hope the best, and hopefully he can get healthy from it. I mean, it's an eye opener for me. I'm not in the best shape, so COVID, please stay away.
Please stay away. Yeah. But you know what's not staying away, Lenny?
The UFC.
More fights. Yeah, we just keep getting more fights announced.
We're in the thick of it right now, man. We're getting fights every fucking week. So keep them coming.
That's why we're here. Mm-hmm. But it's always good for us to kind of give some insight into some big fights that are coming up. We've got one April 24th. When I say I'm excited to see Rose Namajunas get back in the ring or back in the octagon, there's always been that nagging feeling of this can't be the end of it for her. That one slam from Jessica Andrade can't be how it finishes. We get the announcement that it's going to be Rose Namajunas versus Weili Zhang. And Sorry, go ahead.
So you look at this and it's so we later on in the video we're going to talk about the fights this weekend, and you have the female GOAT, the best fighter in the world right now from a female perspective, maybe pound for pound top 5, top 3. Well, you could put her anywhere you want in there. She's amazing. But I look at the collective of women here, the first 2 you mentioned here, Weili and Rose. Stoked for that. These are 2 of the top tier women you're going to find. Weili coming off of one of the best female performances of all time in a fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk
candidate. Yeah.
But you also got booked a strawweight defense as well.
Oh yeah.
Right, between Valentina Shevchenko, who outside of a couple of close decision losses to Amanda Nunes, is also maybe the second. She could argue she's the best woman in the world. Like she's incredible.
The only reason this woman isn't the GOAT is because she lost to the possible GOAT.
Because she lives in the world, the same world. It's like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. It's like Peyton Manning the whole time is like, I should be the best of my era, but there's always this guy winning fucking rings.
It's even better because Peyton Manning was like, yeah, I'm the only quarterback to take 2 different teams to a Super Bowl ring. Tom Brady's like, I did it, and I'm actually going to do it again.
Yeah, I'll probably do a couple of them under my belt.
Yeah, Valentina Shevchenko
fighting,
just being a product of there being a bigger wolf, but she's taking on a huge.
Speaking
huge
of wolves,
yeah. I mean,
powerhouse.
Jessica Andrade. I mean, we made a mention of her name. One of the most memorable knockouts of Rose Namajunas with a huge WWE slam. Could you say? I think that's worse than anything we'd seen in the WWE.
What do you think of the weight class change that she's gone from? Because obviously this is for the flyweight title. She's going up 10 pounds in weight. She's looked kind of to have changed her fighting style a little bit. She's a little more strategic, has a little more movement to her offense now. I think she's not so just straightforward.
Yeah, I think she benefited from the move from 125 down to 115, got a lot of experience down there, and now she goes up to 125, and she's going to bring, I think, a speed advantage that, at least for herself, that she didn't have when she was fighting some of those heavier girls. But man, it is tough to say that she's going to beat Valentina Shevchenko.
She's always reminded me of, or she did for a long time. I think she's moved past this actually, but she used to remind me a lot of John Lineker.
Oh yes, I remember you saying that.
With the way she would fight. But yeah, she's definitely evolved way past that, and she's a finisher, man. When I look at the fight, I'm very excited for it. I think if I had to choose between these 2 women fights that are announced, these female fights, I do lean towards Rose. There's something about the way she fights that's so smooth and effortless, and I think when she's on her game, and even in that fight that she loses to Jessica Andrade,
she's winning that fight.
She looked fucking great, and now she's going against a woman who is a buzzsaw, a powerhouse, but has shown that she went 5 rounds with Joanna, and Joanna I think unlocked some stuff that we had talked about. Fighting at range with I think is a very important part of the game that it's going to take to beat somebody like Weili. And I look at Rose as somebody who has the footwork and the striking ability to do so.
And her counter work is some of the best that she's got amazing footwork. It really is a tale of 2 fights, because when you look at that main and co-main, when I look at Valentina Shevchenko, everything that you just said, she is smooth, she's fluid, she can make everything look easy, and she's going to be facing a bulldozer herself in Jessica Andrade. It gets really interesting how an unstoppable force will have to kind of face an immovable object. I really love both of these fights getting announced, and I think it's going to be really interesting.
So there's the last fight that was announced, one more title fight.
June 12th.
It's a big rematch of another classic fight. They're hoping this one, they didn't just catch lightning in a bottle, and this one will live up to the hype of the first fight. The flyweight division in the UFC for men's has maybe never been bigger than it is right now.
Deiveson Figueiredo, man. Jeez.
Deiveson Figueiredo is going to be coming back. This is going to be in June 12th, I believe, at UFC 263. He's going to be rematching Brandon Moreno.
In a fight that could have went either way, but really
dogfight. It was a real dogfight.
Really stood out as a possible fight of the year candidate. And when I look at us revisiting this fight, I just hope that it continues right where it left off, because there wasn't a moment in that fight where we weren't kind of clamoring for more action. There was some beautiful exchanges. Brandon Moreno really putting a stamp on his name, so to speak. And gets interesting. Do we get a rubber match after this?
Do you think it can live up to the first matchup? Do you because I guess my point is, how often do they?
They never do, and that's me being cautiously optimistic. Outside of maybe Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard, they've always hesitated to live up to the hype. My thought here is, though, that both of these guys, very smaller weight class, a lot smaller than we've seen some of those other rematches. This may have to go all 5 rounds. I don't think either one of these guys is getting knocked out.
I like Brandon Moreno, but my early prediction is he gets finished.
Okay. I can't. I'm not going to knock you there. So 2 really good fights to look forward to, 2 events to look forward to. UFC 261 on April 24th, and then UFC 263 on June 12th.
Notice there is a UFC 262 in the middle. They have not announced a main event for that. Yeah. Some rumors that was where they wanted to place one Conor McGregor in his attempt to rematch Dustin Poirier. But Ariel Helwani recently said on his show with DC that they're a little far apart right now, so that might get pushed to International Fight Week in the summer with more potential of fans and things like that. Especially after fucking Canelo just fought and had 20,000 people watch him fight in an open air stadium. Yeah,
if you asked how many people knew that Canelo Alvarez fought this weekend, flew very much under the radar.
This was just a way to get in. You're our boxing guy, so this was a way to get him to Billy Joe Saunders.
That's correct? The idea. Yeah.
A fight that he should win, but it's at least a credible challenge.
I would probably say that's going to be Canelo's biggest challenge. Billy Joe Saunders is I don't want to use the term that he's no slouch. This man,
he's a little unorthodox, right?
Is very unorthodox, has all the tools to be a dangerous caliber opponent for one Canelo. My thing with Billy Joe is we just don't get to see him enough. When we look at his resume, he's got some decent names, not really any headliners that you're really going to know of. And he probably fights once a year, once every 18 months. And when he does fight, he's not getting any of the exposure. The most exposure he's gotten is being on a Logan Paul KSI fight card. And that's unfortunate given his skill.
I guess, but
it's something, but it's not what he deserves, especially if he's going to be promoted as fighting somebody in the caliber of Canelo Alvarez.
We'll see if it even happens with the fuckery that happens in the sport of boxing. Right?
It should just be called shithousery instead of boxing. Yeah. Like, hey, what are you guys doing there? Oh, we shithouse. And we shithouse, and then eventually some guys punch each other, and we make a shitload of money off of it.
We hope for the best, yeah. Let's move on to an organization that does put on massive fucking cards.
Yeah, when you talk about structure and getting it done right, they 9 times out of 10 are going to get it right.
Yeah, dude, this is a stacked one, and I feel like it's like a broken record when it comes to the UFC with saying this is fucking stacked, bro. It's the best card of all time, best card of the year.
Break that record, bro.
If they keep doing this, we're gonna have to, because you've got 3 title fights. Your prelims has maybe the best bantamweight of all time.
Yes.
Dominic Cruz. You have, or not even main event. I think he's the second from the top.
Yeah, he's second from the top.
You have Joseph Benavidez, a staple in the flyweight division, also on the prelims. So it's a very, very, very deep card. Song Yadong, always an exciting fight.
Kai Kara France, somebody that they've been trying to promote quite a bit. And even, early prelims, you got Tim Elliott.
Yeah,
I mean, that's somebody. We
might give you some breakdowns on those later, but needless to say, this card is big from top to bottom. Great matchups. But let's start off with the main event, the big deal here, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got champion versus champion status in the biggest way.
You have I'll start here with the maybe, and I don't even think if this is like hyperbole or anything, like maybe the hottest prospect. Is he even a prospect anymore? Maybe one of the biggest rising stars. He's creeping into that top 5 potential for, I think, star power in the UFC. He might have already gotten there. Israel Stylebender.
The last Stylebender, baby.
Yes. A guy who started his career in 2010 in the kickboxing world. He's done kickboxing. He's done Muay Thai. He's participated in boxing, and in 2012 he took up the sport of MMA.
The mantle,
the fucking collective of all of it. From then, 2010 or 2012, he is actually undefeated, 20-0, Matt.
That's insane,
right?
It's so crazy.
It's insane in MMA because you don't actually get easy matchups for a majority of your career, and I don't think he's taken the easy way to get here. We haven't seen a rise like this in a very long time. Of course, there's the Conor McGregor rise, but this is more similar to even maybe a John Jones rise through the rankings, as tough as that maybe is to hear it for him.
I don't think that's outside of the realm of praise that you can give Israel Adesanya, because when you talk about kickboxing, the man only had one loss. Yeah. And it was a devastating loss, but it's one loss nonetheless. And when he came over to the world of MMA, there's always that waiting to see if he could actually perform at the highest level.
Did you see this? I just watched this today, and speaking of his one loss. So he was on Teddy Atlas's podcast, and he was talking about his one loss. Well, his coach and him were both on there. And his coach was saying the issue with the one loss in kickboxing was actually, or not the one loss, but his one knockout loss that he has on his record, rather. He had lost a fight previous to that by decision, but it was a decision that most thought he won. So he came out pissed off the next fight, fought with emotion, and ends up in the last like 30 seconds of a fight he was winning, getting knocked out, going toe to toe with somebody. And I just thought that was interesting. Like, I just heard that story today, and it's a learning lesson for a guy who's clearly, look at his record since then. I mean, he's a TKO machine first and foremost.
Does it in devastating fashion.
So yeah, he's looking to unify a couple belts, Matt. How about your guy?
It's not going to be easy, because the guy that he has to beat to get that all coveted champ status, as DC would call it, is one Jan Blachowicz, who is currently the 205-pound champion. And if you look at Jan's career, there's no way you would have thought that he gets here. So he starts off 2007 fighting for KSW. The majority of his career is in KSW over in Chechnya. And he's rattling off wins. Poland, sorry. We were talking about Chechnya earlier. Got me mixed up.
I get it, man. I don't want our Chechnyan fans.
No, gotta show the respect to
the Polish.
To the Polish hammer. Mm-hmm. He is unbelievable when we look at.
I'm not talking about you.
Shout out to Jeff. But when we look at Jan Blachowicz, there was always that mixture of results when he was fighting in the UFC. He lost to guys when they were perennial top 10 contenders. We're talking about Patrick Cummins, Corey Anderson. I remember his loss to Ilir Latifi, if you can go that far back, his UFC debut. But since then, he had a turn, avenge some of those losses. He beats Corey Anderson, beats Patrick Cummins.
Jimmy Manawa.
Beats Jimmy Manawa. That's another big one that I forgot that he avenged that loss. And when you look at the names that he's beaten, you would almost consider him the 185-pound to 205 transition killer.
Yeah, I mean, he's taken out, at this point, Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, and now, not Chris Weidman, excuse me, Ronaldo Jacare Souza. He took out Ronaldo Jacare, and he also took out Luke Rockhold. Now you're looking down the barrel of the up and coming, star of that division. A guy who's defending the belt, the guy who's putting it on the map again after Anderson Silva's left. If he gets it done, he might be the middleweight killer.
And this isn't the first time that if someone, and I don't think anybody is writing off Jan at this point, but if you look at his matchups, he's always been the guy that they kind of want to use to springboard into, a different type of status. When we look at Luke Rockhold, it was Luke Rockhold coming from 185 pounds. It was going to be the rebirth of Luke Rockhold at 205 pounds. Not for Jan. Jan doesn't allow that to happen. And he wins the 205-pound title by derailing another hype train in Dominic Reyes, and does it in outstanding fashion.
I also think Jared Cannonier was a middleweight, by the way, or he's middleweight now, right? So he went down.
Yeah, so Jared Cannonier started as a heavyweight, and when they fought, they were at 205.
So regardless, I think the thing that's really tough for me is I won't lie, I've for a very long time have had an opinion that he loses most of his fights. Like, in my head, I've always picked against him. And I think it was built on that initial run of anytime you saw him go against a name when he got to the UFC, Jimmy Manawa, Corey Anderson, Alexander Gustafsson. Even Patrick Cummins, for what it's worth, is a name. Like, he fought Daniel Cormier on like a week's notice.
5 days notice.
And got a name out of it. So when I saw him fight people that I thought were relevant at that time, it allowed me to build an impression of him. And to his credit, since 2017, he has done nothing but change perception of him completely.
Started his UFC career 1-4.
It's tough, man. A lot of guys don't come back from that, and that's resolve in itself. So
exactly,
tough guy. He's lost 1 in his last 10. I do look at a fight like this though, and I don't know how much stock I still put into some of these victories. I don't know how much stock I put into beating Jacare and to beating Luke Rockhold. Even for what it's worth, Dominic Reyes is a great fighter, but I think Dominic Reyes.
You had said a while ago that he was too green.
He already had his Super Bowl,
Yeah.
man. Like he thinks he beat John Jones.
Yeah.
You've
already gotten to the top of the mountain. What more do you have to work for? And you're still so very short-lived in your career.
So I'm sure the guy makes a comeback. I just think it was tough to have Dominic, like that victory over Dominic Reyes. While it's great, and I didn't expect him to win because I've picked against him, like I said, a million times over. I don't think
anybody would blame you.
This run that he's on, I mean, the power scares me. When I look at this matchup for Izzy, the power's got to worry you a little bit, right? But Izzy's fought at this weight before, so I don't think that's that crazy for him to go up to 205.
Izzy has been able to show that he can take a punch. Kelvin Gastelum, that man had a fat lip and walked into the fifth round, said, I'm ready to die in here. I don't think that there's going to be any quit in Izzy, but I think, man, it gets really interesting when you start factoring in the fact that he's moving up to 205. It's a bigger jump than any other weight class. We're talking not 10 pounds, not 15. We're talking 20 pounds.
It's the biggest jump for any doubleweight champion, aside from DC doing the heavyweight jump.
I think DC made that jump by himself, going from 205 pounds to 240. Shout out to DC.
So an interesting thing I had read today was this is the first time Izzy in about like 10 fights is fighting somebody with even close to the same reach as Izzy, because he has he's blessed the same way John Jones is, that he has very, very long reach. So he's got an 80-inch reach. Jan is at a 78-inch reach, so he's still a little shorter in terms of arm length. Kelvin Gastelum being the smallest, he only had 71-inch reach. But I think what's interesting there, or something that I kind of took from that, is
Israel Adesanya is 6'4".
Yeah, so the length, they're just not that far apart in size. Okay. I think Jan's going to be a thicker.
He's girthy. Yeah, he's going to be girthy.
You know.
Did you say pause on thick?
Well, yeah, thicker guy, you know.
I was going to say girthy, so I can pause. Sorry.
I do think it's interesting, though. Is there an advantage that Kelvin Gastelum had in the shorter arm reach that he got inside the reach? And he fought a very tight in the pocket style that I just, I know that if Jan puts him on his back foot and is able to march him down and put him on the end of his punches, it's going to be a long night for Izzy. But can he fight a style in the open like Calvin did, where you have to get inside the pocket and stay inside the pocket to really land it? I just don't know with arm length that matches up like that. So you have to fight more at Izzy's range, right?
And that's where I get really excited for Stylebender in this matchup, because he's had to fight shorter guys. He's needed to kind of use the length, but also use it in a sense where he's able to back them into a corner. Here, he's not going to need to do that, because he's going to be able to somewhat dance around Jan, get a little bit more movement going, keep him at arm's length. I think we see a lot more of the kicking game from Israel Adesanya in this, and that only sets up his hands, which for me, man, I think it sets up a beautiful matchup.
So my prediction for this fight is I am going to take Izzy. This is in the moment. I am actually going to switch, but I would take the over on the rounds. I don't know what this is at. I assume it's probably 3.5.
Sure.
It's probably right down the middle, but I'm taking Izzy with the over. I think it's going to decision. I think it'll be a fairly one-sided decision, though. Izzy might get rocked a little bit early, but for the most part, I think he'll be able to control distance and pace.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. And I think Stylebender comes out of this fight. I do think that this has to go to a decision. I think it would be tough to say that he's going to knock out Jan. I will stick with the Izzy pick, but for me, I'm just excited for this fight. I think it's going to be a fantastic event and lines up to give Stylebender a chance at superstardom in that ever-coveted champ status.
All right, and we are back with our next little part of our breakdown here of UFC 259. But before we go into that, if you've made it this far, just do us a favor if you haven't yet. Matt, what can they do? They
gotta hit us in the comments, hit the subscribe button,
tap on the keys, and punch your way to freedom in the.
They could finger pop the like button.
Jesus, that was aggressive. Yeah, why don't you tongue punch the fart box of the comments down below as well, right?
21 Jump Street.
Yeah,
finger pop the like button, dude.
I loved it when you did it, and I hope you keep doing it. So thank you. If you haven't done that, please do that there. I digress, and I won't keep us there in this awkward little space we put ourselves in any longer. Let's move on. We have the female GOAT up next, Matt.
Bah. Yeah, she's the best, man.
We should have discussed whether you were going to make that noise before we did this.
Sorry. No, the female GOAT, pound for pound, could end up on anybody's list as the greatest woman fighter of all time.
It's probably not polite to talk about pound for pound when you talk about women, though, huh?
I mean, I think it's safe to do that when they fought at 2 different weight classes.
I've just always been raised that you don't talk about a woman's weight.
Yeah, we don't ask them their age either. But I do know that she's beaten up women at 2 different weights, which does mean that she fluctuates weight from time to time.
She's around 30.
Whoa. Dude.
I just want to double down if we were going to go in. Like,
wow, man.
Yeah, sorry.
I wish we would have discussed you doing that just now.
Yeah, no offense.
But yes, we have Amanda Nunes, current champion at 145 pounds, current champion at 135 pounds, featherweight and bantamweight respectively. And she hasn't really run out of the list of contenders.
She's beat them all up at this point.
She's knocking on the door.
Because you say that, and we're going to get into it, obviously. So she's fighting Megan Anderson, right? And maybe Megan.
It's Megan.
Megan. Looks like Megan.
She's Australian. It's Megan.
Either way,
it's down under.
She's fighting Megan Anderson, a person who's had her ups and downs in the UFC. And we just talked about it with Jan, where, the overcoming rough times in the UFC at the level that they have to fight at every single time they go out. I'm never going to say that that's not an important trait in a fighter.
Sure.
We know she's game. However, I do think looking at who she's beat to get this title opportunity, to say that maybe Amanda Nunes hasn't beat up all of her challengers is like, they've been trying so hard to make this fight happen because this is the only credible person that they think is out there to fight her.
Megan Anderson was always, I remember her being outside of the UFC at Invicta, and everyone saying this is going to be the girl that beat Cyborg. She missed the opportunity to fight Cyborg when she lost to Holly Holm in her UFC debut. Mm-hmm. Then she was going to be the girl that took down Amanda Nunes. And then she lost to Felicia Spencer.
Yeah, I mean, even the Katzengano thing in between that was like a weird... Remember? Like, it was like a weird fight.
It was a head kick that she missed, and the toe got in her eye, and they called the fight because Amanda...
Zingano, yeah.
Yeah, she curled up, and that ended the fight.
So needless to say, her UFC career has never really seemed to get off to the start that they wanted to, the middle part that they wanted to. But she's won 2 fights in a row. I don't want to take that away from her, against people who I don't even know if they're ranked. And part of the issue is there's no depth at the 145-pound weight division. That's another issue here, is that they created a belt for Cyborg, who's not even in the organization anymore.
Because Amanda Nunes beat her.
Thankfully for them, the person that they wanted to win won. But now you're in a position where the good thing is it's a lot easier for Amanda Nunes to fluctuate the weight that she does, to go up to 145, where you're not asking her to kill herself to go down to 135 either. That she can do this, and you can kind of try and build this weight division. But I don't see a world where she's losing to Megan Anderson.
I don't see a world. I don't see a universe. I don't see a different galaxy or a reality. I'm sorry, alternate reality where she beats Amanda Nunes.
Like, let's do MMA math real quick, Matt. So Megan Anderson loses to Felicia Spencer, correct?
Yep. Submission loss, not a decision. Submission.
The last person that Amanda Nunes fought is a better version, in theory, of Felicia Spencer. Was that a fight? Like, it was a butchering. It was hard to watch.
One of the few fights where, outside of a couple of Shevchenko fights, people are clamoring for someone to throw the towel in.
Yeah.
She shouldn't be in there with her.
Mm-hmm. So I just don't.
I'm
regardless
scared
how this goes on the feet, Megan Anderson can hold her own on the feet. I don't doubt that. The easiest way to victory to me is I just assume if Amanda Nunes wants to, she just takes this to the ground and grinds this out, right? Who doesn't grind, she probably beats the shit out of her.
Yeah, I think if Amanda doesn't want to get touched and wants to fight soon, she'll just take her down to the ground and maul her. If she wants to kind of put a star next to her name and just keep building up, adding those sponsors to her, this could be very quick, I think. A very quick onslaught and barrage. You say that she can withstand the feet? I don't know. I think Amanda Nunes rocks her and just keeps on the pressure. Maybe she doesn't get knocked out, but I think a TKO is probably in the cards.
So I don't know if people are going to bet on Amanda Nunes. I mean, if you are, it's probably, I mean, she's a minus 1,200 favorite. Like it's maybe safe money to go after it. If you wanted to throw a little bit of money on Megan Anderson and hope for the best, like I guess you could do that. I wouldn't be what I would do. I would maybe look at the under. I don't know what the over under is on this, but I'd imagine it's got to be 1.5 or 2.5 rounds. And I would look at maybe taking Amanda Nunes if you're getting good money on getting a finish early.
This is one of those tough ones where I think outside of a parlay, maybe parlaying all 3 fights, you're probably not going to.
And even in parlaying this, it's like you're almost better off with the way this card is set up to parlay, Stylebender and what you think of 135's title fight with something else that's earlier on the card.
Yeah.
Because you're probably going to get better odds on Dominic Cruz or
Joseph Benavidez
or somebody a known commodity later on.
Yep.
Earlier on, Islam Makhachev, I think could be a
Kai
good
Kara
bet,
France.
Earlier on the card. So there's better options than Nunes on this fight card if you're a gambler. I would assume. And you don't want to be the guy who bets all. Like, there's definitely the UFC is doing this thing now where they show the tweets on the screen and they always show the people who bet a lot of money. There's going to be somebody who bets an obscene amount of money on Amanda Nunes, and that night I'm gonna be like, "Fuck, this guy's going to lose all this money." Like, you put $1 million on it to win like 50,000.
Yeah,
like
that's not the move. What are you doing?
It is because I think it's a very safe bet. But yeah, so that's my pick, man. What's yours?
I it's no secret here. I think Amanda Nunes wins this very handily. I think she gets the finish.
Okay.
I don't think there's something to needing to withstand adversity. And as much as Megan has had to face, those bigger names have never been nice to her. So I think this one's going to be a tough onslaught for her. But with that being said, I'm very in tune with this 135-pound title fight that we got.
I mean, it might be the best division in the UFC right now.
It's got a lot of depth to it. And when you look outside of these two fighters, I could possibly see them doing this again, depending on how this goes. That's how high in regard I hold Aljamain Sterling. I think he's shown through a lot of his performances that he's got the goods. But man, this champion, Petr Yan, this guy's bad, man.
I think you are. We've been very fortunate recently to get a lot of matchups of guys who are like top of their division. These are really good matchups. So a couple come to mind, for instance, being, you got Holloway versus Ortega for the title. And you were like, these are two of the number 1 and number 2 in the world. Even Holloway versus
Volkanovski,
1 and 2 in the world. You got Colby versus Usman. And you're like, those are the 2 best in the world. You just had Gilbert Burns, who you at the time were like, this might be
1 and 2.
The 1 and 2 in the world. So this is another instance where I think these are the 2 best guys at 135 right now. I don't know if you can rematch them right away because there's too many fucking killers, like alpha males.
Well, that's why I say
behind him in line.
See what you did there. No, I say it because as girthy as this division is, there is the potential that Petr Yan can rule this division. And it could be one of those things where it takes somebody having a good fight with him once to kind of try and figure out the puzzle. And it could get really interesting.
I'll tell you this. Petr Yan may have all the hype in the world. I'm not buying into it too much myself. Okay. I'm not all that sold. And I think this is not a good matchup for him. There's nobody he's fought that has the skill set in the UFC that Aljo has from a grappling perspective. And this will be a very, very big test. If he comes out of this fight with a win, I'm sold on him 100%. But I need to see him get through this. I'm not. If I'm picking this fight, I'm not very confident in Petr Yan personally.
Yeah, I didn't do a good enough job kind of setting the backdrop for this. Petr Yan won his title by beating Jose Aldo.
Wasn't even the hardest fight at that weight division in that month. I don't think, if I remember correctly.
I think when I look at his performances, the big ones that stand out to me are John Dodson and Jimmy Rivera, Jimmy Rivera at the time that Petrov beat him was starting to kind of make his own name at 135 pounds and has had a really terrible slide since then. So you can't really put a lot of stock into it.
You were a big Jimmy Rivera fan. I remember that.
I was. I said it.
I think this is an instance, just looking at the 4 fights he has that he's won in a row in the UFC here before. He has Douglas Silva, Andrade too. He has a few other UFC fights, but the 4 that he's kind of built this title run on. Dodson, Rivera, Faber, and Aldo. I think it's just very wise matchmaking by the UFC. They've put him in things that have built his name. Uriah Faber coming back from retirement to fight him.
Was that fight on short notice?
I think so. Well, yeah, it was kind of like
Uriah
Faber
took that on short notice.
Short notice
yeah.
as kind of a make good. Well, wanted to get high. He wanted to get to TJ Dillashaw.
Yep. And it just didn't work.
But I think they've put him in some winnable matchups against veteran opponents that were good to build his name. Whereas on the other side, I do see Aljamain is beating the who's who of this fucking division. Not name brand who's who.
But we know who these people are.
The toughest guys in the he's fighting top 10 guys every time out there and beating them. So.
Do you remember when he beat Renan Barão?
Mm-hmm.
Renan Barão was already at the end of his ropes at that point.
Yeah, he was on the downward.
But it was the way that he did it. There was so much confidence oozing out of him, and he kind of always had that. And it was kind of his downfall in the Marlon Moraes fight. Freak, head kick, hitting him with the knee knockout. But I think Aljamain Sterling is bringing that the personality that I think has been missing from this division.
Well, Triple C, I think, tried to put some of that in there.
Like I said, brought personality, not cringe.
Yeah.
Triple C was trying too hard, and it showed. I think Aljamain Sterling has the charisma, he has the skill set, and has the following where he's going to be able to make a name for himself in this division, and then possibly fight bigger guys if he wanted to. I think he does have all the makings to be a star in this division. And when you look at the guys that he's beaten, Corey Sandhagen, Pedro Munoz, Jimmy Rivera, Cody Stammen, the Marlon Moraes loss for me was kind of a heartbreaker because I am an Aljo fan, and he got slept in that fight.
Yeah.
But has looked fantastic since facing that adversity.
I mean, it's a common theme of what we've talked about here between Jan, Megan, and now even Aljo, where I do think you have to come through some adversity to come out the other side and fighting. I think it's John Kavanagh who, I think his book might have been called You Win or You Learn.
Yeah.
Instead of, you win
or you lose.
It's just you win or you learn. So I look at the Moraes fight, and I even look at Rafael Assunção loss that he has on the record, even Brian Caraway, all three guys that are very good fighters that he had to go through those tough fights. But, the past four, man, those guys,
and both of those split decisions could have gone either way. A lot of people thought he won them.
So the most recent, Corey Sandhagen, he ripped through this guy who just knocked out,
destroyed Frankie Edgar.
Yeah, and it was nothing. Who also knocked out Pedro Munoz too, right? He's great, and he's able to go right through this guy like it's no problem. I just think the grappling of a Aljo Sterling is going to be a bit too much here. I think if it gets to the ground in the first couple rounds, it's going to be a long night for Petr Yan. Now, if he can't get it to the ground in those first couple rounds, and Petr Yan's able to stand and strike with him, it's going to be a problem.
Petrard does have the benefits of being powerful at that division, and he's got some nasty leg kicks.
Yeah.
Aljo, as strong as he is, he's got those chicken legs. They're very thin. They're not.
Jones
yeah,
legs.
those John Jones legs would be a big concern for me. But Aljo's faced a lot of name guys who've tried to leg kick, and it just doesn't end up working out for him. His wrestling dynamic is very good.
Well, because when you leg kick, you have to leave yourself susceptible to the one thing that Aljo wants to do to you. So is that even a smart game plan to bring out there? I don't know.
It is a benefit.
My pick in this one is going to be Aljo, if you can't tell. I was going to pick him by decision, but I'm going to pick him by submission.
Bastard.
I'm taking the finish.
You bastard.
Now, I don't know when it'll happen. I assume it's got to be later in the fight, 4th or 5th round. So if you are a gambler and the over-under is anything after that, if you're getting 3.5 or later, I'm thinking I'm taking the over still.
It's no secret. Aljamain Sterling, he's my guy. I think he's winning this. I think he does it in spectacular fashion. I think a big submission win, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the first 2 rounds. I do think that he's going to be able to take advantage of it there. And I'm just excited for the fights, man, but that's not all we have.
We have a lot on the docket. I do want to point out, I think this is one of the few times that there's no diversity between the two of us. We are 100% on the same page for this whole fight card for the most part. We do have one title changing hands, though, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Other fights on the card, I did mention it. Islam Makhachev. This is like the little brother of one Habib Nurmagomedov. Keep an eye on him. That's going to be a big one. This could be the guy who Habib actually says he's going to retire and give his belt away for, because we know he's not going to do it for any of the other guys he's beat.
Nope.
That's a big one. Our guy Rakic Rashish.
Brother, I was glad you brought him up.
Alexander
Rakic.
If you've been around since the
Rakic.
beginning, like our first or second video, I think was
We were in love with this guy.
was him beating Anthony Smith. So yeah, he's coming back. He's fighting a guy, Thiago Santos. It should be a banger.
Should be a banger. One to look out for. May not last very long, though.
Mhm.
Both guys have a lot of power in their hands, but plenty of skill to make that fight interesting. And then as we continue to look at the prelims, man, that's
Who's
a
standing
name
out
that I
to you?
just
Yeah.
cannot. It just doesn't sit well with me that Dominic Cruz is on the prelims, but
I think
that's
it's
an
the
easy
right
one.
spot for him. I also don't like that Dominic has not backed off of the fact that he's blaming Keith Peterson for his last fight
Yeah,
still.
yeah.
Let's see if he gets it done. This is a ballsy move to take somebody outside of the top 15 when you're in the position Dominic Cruz is in. I do like taking tune-up fights. I think the UFC should do more of that.
Yes.
Even a guy like Benavidez, it's like you're going against, what's that, the number 3 at the weight class?
Yeah.
Dude, like, this guy's got to stop. I'm sorry, I don't even want to get into it. We'll be here all
We
fucking
don't have time in this
But,
video. Yes.
I hope the best for him. I love Benavidez, but I don't even know a ton about Askar. I'm going to take Askarov, though. Askarov.
Askarov.
Yeah, I'm taking him.
It's getting a big win.
I hate to say it.
I've mentioned it a couple times. Kai Kara France.
You're a big fan.
I not that I'm a huge fan. I've seen what the kid can do. Does hold a lot of
A lot
promise.
of numbers next to names on this prelim. So I would say in general, tune into this whole card, man. From prelims on, you're getting a lot of value here. As fucked up as it is to try and buy a UFC pay-per-view, if you're a guy who wants to try and do that, go right ahead.
Have fun and make sure to keep your digital receipts and emails handy.
Yeah. Oh, hopefully that shit works. Nobody ever has a good experience with it.
But also, if you're able to catch the early prelims, being headlined by Tim Elliott, former title contender, always interesting to see him fight.
Always game.
Absolutely. But this was a good tale of the tape, man.
Dude, I'm glad we don't talk about MMA as much as we used to, but I enjoy being able to get into cards like this. If you have picks out there, if you think we're right, you think we're fucking idiots, more often than not, we come back the next week.
Those are the
this.
comments I'm waiting for.
Yeah, like we normally regret our picks after, so let us know.
And if you have any other insight cards that you're looking into, things to look for, maybe you're on a new diet and you've been talking to John Jones about his supplements, hit us in the comments, guys. We want to have those conversations. Let us know how you're feeling. But as always, make sure to hit the subscribe button.
Be careful to diet and drink wine. As we've seen, it'll affect your performance the next day.
Don't cut 20 pounds and get drunk.
The other thing that'll affect your performance is if you haven't liked this fucking video yet. Just please, for the love of God, the video, man.
You got nothing else to do. You're in
What
a
are you
pandemic.
doing?
Hit subscribe, hit like, fucking hit us in the comments. All right. If I have to start making fake accounts and putting comments down, I'll do it.
Yeah,
Don't make
we're not above anything.
I'll Kevin Durant the whole show. I don't care.
You can also catch us at For Those With Good Taste on Instagram, at Good Taste Live on Twitter. I have a
Bumble account.
yeah, probably. Tinder, fucking Plenty of Fish. I don't know any other dating
J-Date.
sites. Yeah. I'm big on
Farmers
J-Date.
only.
I curl my hair before I go on J-Date. Until next week, guys, we love you. Talk to you soon.
Stay clean, San Francisco.
Not how the saying goes. Peace.
For those with good taste.